Why do the most loyal women leave first? Why does the one who saw your soul vanish before anyone else even gets close? You tell yourself she changed, but she didn't change. You did. Or maybe worse, you didn't. She waited. She watched. She believed. And when it became clear you wouldn't rise into the man she silently hoped for, she disappeared. Not with bitterness, not with shouting, but with calm, with clarity, with strength. That woman didn't leave because she didn't care. She walked away because she cared more than you did, while you stayed distracted, stuck in loops, ignoring your calling. She saw through the smile you forced. She saw the weight of your laziness. She saw you playing small when you promised you were destined for greatness, and when she could no longer carry the hope alone, she walked. This video is not about blame, it's about transformation. It's about understanding why that woman left, why she still matters, and most importantly, what you must do now. If she truly loved you, she left because you refused to love yourself. And until you understand that, every woman that follows her will end the same way. Comment below, I'm ready to rise. If you're asking yourself, why do the ones who love me most end up leaving? Then you need to hear this, because the answer isn't out there, it's within you. Before we go any deeper, I need to tell you something. There's a resource that breaks this down beyond anything you've heard. The Stoic Relationship Blueprint, ebook for men. It's not a dating manual, it's not some quick-fix ebook. It's a battle-tested roadmap that teaches you how to master your emotions, your leadership, and your presence in relationships, based entirely on Stoic principles and brutal real-world truths. It's available now, but it won't be forever, because this isn't meant for everyone. It's meant for the men who are truly ready to take the hit and level up. Now back to the truth you came here for. Number 1. She leaves when you stop leading yourself. When she first met you, she didn't see a finished man. She saw a seed, raw, real, unpolished, but brimming with something rare. She didn't fall in love with the titles you wore or the image you painted for the world. She saw past the mask, right into the hunger behind your eyes, the silent desire to be something, to create something, to lead something with meaning. And that hunger, it pulled her in. It made her believe. You didn't need to have it all figured out, because your fire was alive. Every word you spoke carried weight, not because of what you had, but because of what you were becoming. You had purpose, even if it was still in pieces. And in a world full of men chasing comfort, she saw you choosing war with your own weakness. That's what made her choose you. But then something shifted. The man who once woke up with intensity began sleeping through life. The man who once attacked the day started negotiating with the snooze button. She noticed how your eyes dulled, how your voice lost conviction. You still spoke of vision, but your actions whispered hesitation. You didn't stop loving her, but you stopped leading yourself. And to a woman who thrives on truth, that was the beginning of the goodbye. You see, she wasn't looking for a hero in a cape. She was searching for a man at war with his excuses. She wasn't demanding certainty, but she needed direction. And direction doesn't come from speeches, it comes from sacrifice. Real leadership is waking up when you don't feel like it. It's staying loyal to your commitments when no one's clapping. It's building your discipline when distraction begs for your attention. She watched you stop leading. You stopped planning your days with clarity. You stopped being intentional with your time. You stopped learning, growing, training, praying, building. And that's when her faith started bleeding. She needed to see you become the man she could follow into the fire. But you were barely leading yourself through a Monday. And no matter how much she loved you, she couldn't follow a man who was no longer moving forward. Love without leadership feels like drowning in slow motion. She was holding on to you while you drifted further from the man she admired. She hoped you'd snap out of it. She hoped you'd return to that mission-driven version of you, the one who made her believe. But days became weeks, weeks became months, and the man who once inspired her now drained her. She didn't leave because she wanted to. She left because she had to. Because staying would have cost her too much. She needed you to show up, not just for her, but for you. She needed your goals written down, your values locked in, your principles guarded like sacred ground. But you were winging it, living on autopilot. She loved the man you were when you were chasing something greater. But when you surrendered your leadership, you gave up the role she admired most. Don't fool yourself into thinking her departure was about someone else. It wasn't. It was about you, not leading the one man you were always responsible for, yourself. If you're not leading you, you're leaving her without protection, without direction, without the emotional gravity that makes her feel anchored in your presence. She watched you let yourself go. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And every time you ignored that voice inside, begging you to move, to rise, to train, to build, she heard it too. She watched you kill your own potential in silence, one day at a time. And the deeper her love was, the more painful it became to stay. Because love without leadership is heartbreak, dressed as hope. She didn't want to be your motivator. She wanted to be your witness. But she couldn't keep watching a man abandon himself and pretend she didn't feel it. So she walked, not because her love died, but because yours did. The love you were supposed to give to your mission, to your growth, to your destiny. She didn't just lose a boyfriend. She lost the future she built in her heart with you. Because the man who led himself inspired her to dream. And the man who gave up made her feel alone, even while you were lying beside her. That's why she left. That's why she won't come back unless you rise again. Number 2. She needed you to build, not just dream. She didn't fall for your potential because you said the right things. She fell because your hunger to build was unmistakable. You spoke of visions, yes. But more than that, she saw how you moved when no one was watching. She saw how you stayed up late mapping ideas, how you skipped cheap pleasure to work on your future, how your goals weren't just dreams, but detailed missions. You brought structure to your passion, and that structure gave her peace. You were a man building a kingdom in the shadows, one brick at a time. You didn't wait for permission. You didn't beg for applause. You got to work. And in a world of men who live in fantasy, you were grounded in execution. That's what made her feel safe. But somewhere along the way, dreaming became a hiding place. You started talking more than doing, planning more than acting. Every idea became an excuse to not finish the last one. You romanticized the struggle and forgot the discipline. She needed you to build, not impress her with lofty goals or pretty words. She needed timelines, not poems. She needed results, not theories. She needed to see your hands dirty, not your lips busy. And when that faded, so did her trust. Because a man who dreams but never builds is just as dangerous as the man who never dreams at all. He makes women hope without proof. He opens doors with charm, but leaves them half-finished. She needed blueprints, strategy, milestones, the grind. But you gave her dreams on repeat, like lullabies meant to keep her quiet while you stalled. You were once a man of movement. Now you were just noise. And for a woman who builds with her soul, this was betrayal, because she was building too. Her patience, her emotional investment, her loyalty. She was going all in on a man she thought was laying a foundation. But foundations require sacrifice, sweat, simplicity, discipline. You got addicted to the fantasy of who you could be instead of becoming him. You thought talking about your vision was the same as building it. And she saw through that. She didn't want a philosopher who preaches dreams. She wanted a builder who gets up before the sun and gets to work. A man whose calendar reflects his values. A man who doesn't negotiate with himself. A man who tracks his time like a warrior, counts his steps on the battlefield. Because if he's not building, he's lying. To himself, to her, to everything he claimed to stand for. She waited for you to wake up from your fantasy, to replace dopamine with discipline, to trade hype for systems. But the more you drifted into delay, the more she distanced her belief. She couldn't build on your words anymore. She needed walls, not wishes. She needed you to become a man who meets deadlines, who hits targets, who adjusts and adapts and keeps showing up. Not a man who drowns in someday. And the moment she realized your blueprint was just ink on a napkin and not carved into your character, her heart shifted. Not because she didn't love you, but because loving you started to feel like betrayal to her own vision. She was ready to support you, to help, to sacrifice, but not for a fantasy, not for a man stuck in the theory of himself. She needed a builder. She needed a man with a notebook filled with checkboxes, not poems. She needed to see your discipline, your results, your failures followed by comebacks. But you were too busy selling her a future you had no plan to deliver. And so she left. Because waiting on a man who doesn't build is like planting seeds in cement. She left not because she wanted to move on, but because she couldn't move forward. She didn't fall out of love. She fell out of alignment with a man who never became the builder he promised he was. And now you're here, wondering why she's gone. But the answer has always been brutal in its simplicity. She needed a man who builds, not just one who dreams. Number 3, she refuses to beg for growth. There is something devastating in watching a man choose stagnation. She never expected you to be perfect, but she hoped deeply that you would be hungry. Not the shallow kind of hunger that comes and goes with every motivational video, but the quiet, relentless kind. The kind that wakes you up before the alarm. The kind that rewrites habits, that kills off old versions of you because you're obsessed with becoming something more. She wasn't asking for the world. She just wanted to see you move, to witness you showing up to your own life, to feel like your progress wasn't just talk. But when it came down to it, you stalled. You had excuses, always, and they were dressed in logic, wrapped in stress, painted in self-pity. But she saw through all of it. What broke her wasn't that you weren't there yet. It was that you stopped trying to get there. You became numb to the grind, numb to time slipping, numb to the man in the mirror who was now months behind who he swore he'd become. You still dreamed out loud, but your actions whispered apathy. And so she stopped pushing. Because there's a certain pain in constantly having to nudge a man toward his own greatness. She didn't want to be your motivator. She wanted to stand beside you as your equal. Both of you driven, both of you growing, both of you chasing something bigger than yourselves. She never wanted to be the one dragging you forward. That weight was never hers to carry. She watched how you settled, how you let average become your standard, how you started defending mediocrity with passion instead of building discipline in silence. And the more you resisted the work, the more she pulled back. Because any woman with vision refuses to spend her life with a man who's allergic to growth. She watched you say the same things, year after year, with no difference in your habits. She counted the times you said, "I'm working on it," but never saw a plan, never saw consistency, never saw sweat. She wasn't asking for a millionaire. She was asking for a man who gave a damn about evolving, a man who could feel the weight of time and respond by creating. But you coasted, you complained, you waited for the perfect mood, the perfect moment, the perfect external push. And meanwhile, she waited too. But she wasn't waiting for long, because the truth is, A woman who respects herself will never spend forever trying to convince a man to become who he claimed he'd be. She walked, not because she lost faith, but because she realized you never had it in yourself. She wanted to see a journal filled with notes, ideas, battle plans, a room full of progress, a schedule owned, a life managed, a spirit sharpened. But you gave her passivity. You gave her one good week followed by 6 more, just talking about starting again. You gave her apologies, not progress. She didn't need perfect, but she needed momentum. She needed to feel you were pushing the limits of your own existence, that you were waking up with intention, that you were managing your emotions, your mind, your energy. But you left your growth in neutral, and then expected her to stay inspired. She couldn't. She shouldn't. Because begging a man to grow is the most soul-crushing form of emotional labor. It robs her of her own journey. And no woman who knows her value will waste her years being your reminder. She won't plead, she won't coach, she won't wait, she'll walk. Because growth isn't something she should beg you for, it's something you should chase for yourself. Number 4, she believes in your higher self. When she first met you, she didn't fall for the man you were. She fell for the man you could become. She saw glimpses of something rare in your presence. The way your mind processed the world. The fire in your voice when you spoke about your dreams. The way your words felt bigger than your current life. And she chose you, not because you had it all figured out, but because she believed that with time, discipline, and hunger, you would become someone unstoppable. She was ready to stand beside that man, not the boy running from responsibility, not the excuse maker, the man. She rooted for your higher self, the one who wakes up early and moves with purpose, the one who holds his word like a sacred law, the one who trains not for looks, but for strength, the one who reads, learns, builds, the one who doesn't fear solitude because he's aligned with truth. She gave her heart to that version of you. But the longer she stayed, the more she saw you abandon him. She watched you drift into habits that dulled your edge. You stopped fighting for focus. You stopped protecting your mind. You let comfort lull you into being okay with good enough. And every time you gave in to distraction, every time you chose ease over effort, her belief cracked. Not all at once, but slowly. Because the man she believed in wasn't showing up. You talked about your future, but you weren't building it. You talked about legacy, but spent your time on entertainment. You talked about strength, but broke under every small setback. She needed to see you face the war inside, not with tears, but with tools. She needed to see you write down your vision and live it out in hours, not just in speeches. She needed to see you making hard choices, getting up when it hurt, saying no when the world begged for yes. Because your higher self isn't found in fantasy, it's forged in fire. She believed you would walk into that fire, but you stayed on the edge, looking in, talking about what you'd do, but never stepping. And while you hesitated, she started to disconnect. She tried to remind you, gently, then forcefully, then silently. And when you didn't return to the climb, she knew. The man she saw in you had been abandoned by the man you were pretending to be. She wasn't angry, she was grieving, because her love didn't die. It had nowhere to live. The space she cleared in her heart was for a king, and you left that throne empty. Not because you weren't capable, but because you were comfortable being close enough to potential without paying the price to fulfill it. She needed that higher self, not for status, not for pride, but for safety. Because when a man lives in alignment with his higher self, everyone around him rises. He is peace, he is fire, he is order. And she couldn't build with the version of you who forgot what he swore to become. She couldn't attach her destiny to a man who let his potential rot. So she stepped back, not to punish, but but to protect the vision she had for her life, because the man she believed in stopped believing in himself. And that broke her more than any lie, any betrayal, any other woman ever could. Number 5. She exits to preserve her value. She didn't walk away because she was fragile. She didn't give up because she lacked fight. She left because the cost of staying was greater than the hope she once carried. She poured into you time, energy, belief, loyalty. She supported you when you had nothing but ideas. She stood beside you when your confidence wavered. She forgave you more times than she ever admitted. And still, her heart held on, not because you earned it, but because she saw something rare in you. She saw a man who, despite his pain, had the power to lead, to love deeply, to build something unshakable. But what she didn't see, what she couldn't find in your actions, was consistency. You asked for her loyalty while giving her inconsistency. You asked for her trust while playing with her time. You asked for her patience while avoiding growth. And she tried. God knows she tried. But love without respect becomes a prison, and a woman who knows her value won't spend a lifetime paying rent in a space she built, but was never honored in. She needed to see you value her in action, not sentiment, not in late-night apologies or desperate last-minute grand gestures, but in your daily discipline, your steady effort, your consistency under pressure. She watched how you moved when it mattered, how you prioritized distractions over depth, how you showed up for strangers with more energy than you gave to her, how you always had a reason for falling short, excuses wrapped in charm. And for a while, she swallowed that pain, quietly, hoping. But every time she had to explain what hurt, every time she had to remind you of what was sacred, every time she had to repeat what a real man would already know, a piece of her belief in you began to fade. She didn't want perfect. She didn't want a king on a throne. She wanted alignment, purpose, strength that wasn't loud but steady. A man who carried himself with enough honor that she never had to question her worth just because she loved him. But you made her question. You made her feel like asking for consistency was too much. You made her feel like her standards were pressure instead of principle. And that broke her. Because a woman who knows her worth will never beg a man to treat her like she matters. She'll speak, she'll warn, she'll fight, but only for so long. And when that time runs out, she doesn't throw tantrums. She doesn't threaten. She leaves, quietly, intentionally, finally. Because staying any longer would mean agreeing to live a life that constantly asked her to shrink, to explain, to tolerate. And she'd rather rebuild from ashes than stay in a castle that was never hers to begin with. You didn't lose her love. You lost her peace. And a woman will always choose peace over presence when your presence feels like pressure. You taught her that she had to remind you to value her, to remember her needs, to prioritize her feelings. And that lesson hurt more than you'll ever understand. She gave you everything but herself. And when she finally took herself back, it wasn't an act of anger. It was an act of survival. Because her value wasn't up for negotiation. Her standards weren't suggestions. And her heart wasn't a punching bag for a man still figuring out what he wants. She left to protect what was left of her trust, of her belief in love, of her identity. And now you look back and wonder how she slipped away. But the truth is, she didn't slip. She saved herself from a version of love that demanded too much of her soul and gave too little in return. From a man who promised everything but delivered confusion. From a life where she felt more like a burden than a blessing. And the next time you hear her name, remember this. She didn't leave because she didn't care. She left because you forgot how to show that you did. And her value was never yours to validate. It was hers to guard, and she chose to guard it by walking away. Number 6. She'll reappear only for a king. She didn't disappear to forget you. She didn't walk away to erase the memories, the laughter, the soft moments when you showed her glimpses of who you could become. She left because she saw the truth. The man she once imagined standing at the center of his own life, leading with fire, living with intention, protecting what mattered, that man had gone missing. And she knew in her soul she could no longer carry a future with someone who couldn't carry his own name with pride. She left not out of bitterness, but with tears soaked in clarity. Not because she gave up on love, but because she refused to keep giving it to someone who hadn't earned the right to hold it. But even in her absence, even in her retreat from your life, there was a thread, quiet, unspoken, buried beneath the weight of disappointment, one thread of belief. Not in who you were when she left, but in who you could become if you ever truly woke up. Because she didn't fall in love with a fantasy. She fell for potential in motion. She saw you. She watched the way your voice would shift when you spoke about legacy. She caught the way your presence would sharpen when life demanded strength. She memorized the way your eyes changed when you looked at her, not with lust, but with mission. But when you stopped being that man, when you started shrinking into convenience and avoiding the weight of purpose, she withdrew. Because what she needed wasn't a boy in a relationship, it was a man in command of his own energy. And no matter how deep her love, she refused to settle for the shell of the man she once believed in. But listen closely. Her heart never forgot. It didn't close. It just guarded itself. Like a queen who retreats from a war because the general she trusted stopped showing up. She still watches from afar, not always consciously, not always through social media or phone calls, but energetically, emotionally, spiritually. Some part of her still listens for the echo of who you promised you'd become, and she will reappear, not when you beg, not when you chase, not when you try to manipulate the past, but when you become undeniable, when the man you are is louder than the pain you caused, when your presence can't be questioned, when your words match your results, when your actions carry the kind of weight that makes her feel safe again, not safe like comfortable, but safe like respected. She will only return to a man who has reclaimed his crown, not in arrogance, but in alignment. She needs to see you strong, not in domination, but in discipline, not flexing muscles, but mastering your emotions, not chasing dopamine, but stacking days of purpose. She needs to see that you don't flinch when life pushes, that you've made peace with solitude, that you've learned to hear your thoughts and confront them, that you've let go of distractions and built systems, that your calendar is sacred, that your word is gospel. She needs to see consistency, not chaos. She needs to feel like the man she once fell for has evolved into someone she can trust, not just with her body, but with her time, her heart, her vision. She'll reappear, not for grand gestures, but for the steady presence of a man who no longer moves for validation, a man who is whole on his own. She'll come back when the house you're building is no longer shaky, when the walls are reinforced with character, when the roof is made of discipline, when the foundation is truth, and you'll know. Not because she texts you at midnight, not because she replies to your story. You'll know because something in the air will shift. You'll feel the weight of your own growth. You'll stand taller, not waiting for her return, but knowing that you are finally the man you were born to be, with or without her. And if she reappears, it will not be as a reward. It will be a recognition that she sees now in full what she once only saw in glimpses. But until then, your job is not to wait. Your job is not to hope. Your job is to build, ruthlessly, relentlessly, silently, because the world owes you nothing for trying, and she owes you even less for being sorry. She'll reappear only for a king, not the boy she left, but the man who had the courage to die to who he was, and resurrect as who he was always meant to become. There's something sacred about the man who reclaims himself, not to impress, not to prove a point, but because the cost of staying lost became unbearable. He stops waiting for a reason. He becomes the reason. He stops chasing women and starts chasing legacy. He stops building for approval and starts building for alignment. And she feels it, not through a text, not through a post, but through energy. The same way she once sensed when your confidence cracked, she now senses your power. Quiet, steady, earned. The kind of presence that doesn't announce itself because it no longer needs to. And this shift, it doesn't just change you, it changes what you attract. The same woman who once wept in silence because she felt alone beside you, now feels something different. It's not just hope, it's confirmation. That the man she once prayed for finally prayed for himself. And when that happens, she reappears. Not to be rescued, but to reunite with the version of you she always knew existed. But understand this clearly. She's not returning to fix what was broken. She's coming back to witness what was rebuilt. You must become the man who never again needs saving. The man whose purpose burns so deeply that even if she never returns, the mission still moves. That's the paradox. You become irresistible only when you no longer need to be desired. Only when your value is no longer tied to her return. You become that man by waking up with a plan, by turning off distractions, by sharpening your focus, by transforming pain into progress, by replacing excuses with execution, by mastering what most men avoid: discipline, solitude, accountability. You become that man when your habits make your words unnecessary, when your presence calms chaos, when your direction inspires trust. She'll reappear only when your life no longer requires her to feel complete. That is the difference between love that enslaves and love that elevates. She doesn't want to come back to a boy begging for her to fix him. She wants to walk beside a man who fixed himself and still chose her. She wants to walk into a life that's built, not one that's waiting. That means no more half-started visions, no more promises with no plan, no more someday. It means writing your goals down, breaking them into pieces, showing up every single day even when no one's watching. It means training your body, not to look good, but to become strong. It means reading, studying, growing, managing your money, respecting your time. It means becoming the kind of man who knows how to lead even when life falls apart. And the moment you cross that threshold, not because you want her back, but because you refuse to waste your own potential, you will feel it. A peace, a fire, a weight, all at once. Because kings don't chase, they build thrones. And if she sees that throne, built with sweat, guarded by discipline, she may return. But even if she doesn't, you won't falter. Because kings don't build for women. They build for what they were born to leave behind: legacy, honor, order. And if she reappears, if she knocks, it will not be to finish an old chapter. It will be to begin a new one. One where both of you show up, complete, whole, fierce. Because the version of her that left is not the one that would return. And the man you were will never be enough for the woman she became. You must rise, not to win her back, but to become the man who never falls again. You must rise, for you. Because if you become that man, truly, deeply, consistently, everything meant for you will find you, and everything that isn't will fall away. If you're still watching, it's because something inside you is screaming for change, because you're tired of being disrespected, manipulated, and made to question your own worth in relationships that drain the life out of you. You've seen what happens when you ignore your gut, when you tolerate the intolerable, when you trade your soul for scraps of attention. That ends today. It's time to lead, not chase, to build, not beg, to live by your own standards, not someone else's dysfunction. The Stoic relationship blueprint for men is more than an ebook. It's the truth most men never get to hear, the clarity you were never given, the guide you've needed your entire life to protect your peace, sharpen your vision, and walk away with your dignity intact. If you're ready to reclaim your life, drop a comment right now. The Blueprint. It's linked in the comments, but it won't be there forever. Like this video, subscribe, and help another man avoid years of regret. Because the truth doesn't just set you free, it makes you untouchable.